Running a weekly paper can be quite trying, particularly when your employees are somewhat enthusiastic. A Man of Means by P.J. Wodehouse. Part 4. The episode of the Live Weekly. Read by Karl. It was with a start that Roland Bleak realized the girl at the other end of the bench was crying. For the last few minutes, as far as his preoccupation allowed him to notice them at all, he had been attributing the subdued sniffs to a summer cold, having just recovered from one himself. He was embarrassed. He blamed the fate that had led him to this particular bench, but he wished to give himself up to quiet deliberation on the question of what on earth he was to do with £250,000, to which his figure had now risen. The sniffs continued. Roland's discomfort eased. Chivalry had always been his weakness. In the old days, £140 a year, he had had few opportunities of adulting himself in this direction, but now it seemed sometimes the whole world was crying out for his assistance. Should he speak to her? He wanted to, but only a few days ago his eyes had been caught by the placard of a weekly paper bearing the title of Squibs, in which in large letters was the legend Men Who Speak to Girls, and he had gathered that the accompanying article was a denunciation rather than a eulogy of these individuals. On the other hand, she was obviously in distress. Another sniff decided him. I say, you know, he said. The girl looked at him. She was small, and at the present moment had the air of the flowerette surprised while shrinking, which adds a good 33% to a girl's attractions. Her nose, he noted, was deliberately tilted. A certain pallor had added to her beauty. Roland's heart executed the opening steps of a buck and wing dance. Pardon me, he went on, but you appear to be in trouble. Is there anything I can do for you? She looked at him again, a keen look which seemed to get into Roland's soul and walk about it with a searchlight. Then, as if satisfied with an inspection, she spoke. No, I don't think there is, she said, unless you happen to be the proprietor of a weekly paper with a women's page and need an editress for it. I don't understand. Well, it's all anyone can do for me. Give me back my work or give me something else of the same sort. Oh, have you lost your job? I have. So would you mind going away? Because I want to go on crying, and I'd do it better alone. You won't mind me turning you out, I hope. But I was here first, and there are heaps of other benches. No, wait a minute. I want to hear about this. I might be able... What I mean is... Think of something. Tell me all about it. There was no doubt the possession of £250,000 tones down a diffidence man's diffidence. Roland began to feel almost masterful. Why should I? Why shouldn't you? There's something in that, said the girl. After all, you may know something. Well, as you want to know, I've just been discharged from a paper called Squibs. I used to edit the women's page. By Jove, did you write the article on Men Who Speak? The hard manner in which she had wrapped herself with a garment vanished instantly. Her eyes softened. She even blushed. Just a becoming pink, you know. You don't mean to say you read it? I don't think that anyone ever really read Squibs. Read it, cried Roland, recklessly abandoning truth. I should jolly well think so. I know it by heart. You mean to say after an article like that they actually sacked you? Threw you out as a failure? Oh, they didn't send me away for incompetence. It was simply because they couldn't afford to keep me on. Mr. Petheram was very nice about that. Who's Mr. Petheram? Oh, he's everything. He calls himself the editor, but he's really nothing except office boy, and I expect he will be that next week. When it started with the paper, there was quite a large staff, but it got whittled down by degrees so there was only him and me. It was like the crew of the Nancy Bell. They got eaten one by one until I was the only one left. And now I'm gone. He's doing the whole paper now. How is it he can't get anything better to do, Roland said. He's done lots of better things. He used to be at Carmelite House, but they thought he was too old. Roland felt relieved. He conjured up a picture of a white-haired elder with a fatherly manner. Oh, he's old, is he? 24. There was a brief silence. Something in the girl's expression stung Roland. She wore a rapt look, as if she were dreaming of the absent Petheram, confound him. It was sure that Petherham was not the only man worth looking um, wrapped about. He rose. Would you mind giving me your address? He said. Why? In order, said Roland carefully, that I may offer you former employment on Squibs. I'm going to buy it. After all, you're a man of dash and enterprise. You're Napoleon. Just have his moments. Without looking at her, he perceived he had bowled her over completely. Something told him she was staring at him open-mouthed. Meanwhile, a voice within him was muttering anxiously, I wonder how much this is going to cost. You're going to buy Squibs? Her voice had fallen away to an awestruck whisper. I am, she gulped. Well, I think you're wonderful. So did Roland. Where will I go to find you? He asked. My name is March, Bessie March. I am living at 27 Guilford Street. Thank you. Good evening. I will communicate with you in due course. He raised his hat and walked away. He'd only gone a few steps when there was a patter of feet behind him. He turned. I just want to thank you, she said. Not at all, said Roland. Not at all. He went on his way, tingling with just triumph. Petherham? Who was Petherham? Who in the name of goodness was Petherham? He put Petherham in his proper place, he rather fancied. Petherham, forsooth. Laughable. A copy of the current number of Squibs, purchased at a bookstall, informed him, after a minute's search to find the an editorial page, the offices of the paper were in Fetter Lane, with evidence of his exalted state of mind that he proceeded therefore in a cab. Fetter Lane is one of the streets in which rooms that have only just escaped being cupboards by a few feet achieve the dignity of offices. There might have been space to swing a cat in the editorial sanctum of Squibs, but it would have been a near thing. As for the outer office, in which a vacant-faced lad of 15 received Roland and instructed him to wait while he took his card into Mr. Petherham, it was a mere box. Roland was afraid to extend his chest for fear of bruising it. The boy returned to say that Mr. Petherham would see him. Mr. Petherham was a young man with a mop of hair and an air of almost painful restraint. He was in short sleeves, and the table before him was heaped high with papers. Opposite, evidently in the act of taking his leave, was a comfortable-looking man of middle age with a red face and a short beard. He left his Roland empty, and Roland was surprised to see Mr. Petherham spring to his feet, shake his fist at the closing door, and kick the wall with a vehemence which brought down several inches of discolored plaster. Take a seat, he said, when he finished this performance. What can I do for you? Roland had always imagined that editors in the private offices were less easily approached, and when approached, more brusque. The fact was that Mr. Petherham, whom optimism nothing could quench, had mistaken him for a prospective advertiser. I want to buy the paper, said Roland. He was aware this was an abrupt way of approaching the subject, but after all, he did want to buy the paper, so why did he say so? Mr. Petherham fizzed in his chair. He glowed with excitement. You mean to tell me there's a single bookstall in London which is sold out? Great Scott, perhaps they've all sold out. And how many did you try? I mean, buy the whole paper. Become proprietor, you know. Roland felt he was blushing and hated himself for it. He ought to be carrying these things through with an air. Mr. Petherham looked at him blankly. Why? He asked. Oh, I don't know, said Roland. He felt the interview was going all wrong. It lacked the stateliness which this kind of interview should have had. Honestly, said Mr. Petherham, you aren't pulling my leg? Roland nodded. Mr. Petherham appeared to struggle with this conscience and finally to be worsted by it, for his next remarks were limpidly honest. Don't be an ass, he said. You don't know what you're letting yourself in for. Do you see that biter who went out just now? Do you know who he is? That's the fellow we've got to pay £5 a week for life. Why? We can't get rid of him. When the paper started, the proprietors, not the present ones, thought it would give the thing a boom if they had a football competition with a prize of £5 a week for life. Well, that's the man who won it. He's been handed down as a legacy from proprietor to proprietor, so now we've got him. Ages ago they tried to get him to compromise for a lump sum down, but he wouldn't. Said he would only spend it and preferred to get it by the week. Well, by the time we've paid that vampire, there isn't much left of our profits. That's why we are at the present moment a little understaffed. A frown clouded Mr. Petherin's brow. Roland wondered if he was thinking of Bessie March. I know all about that, he said. And you still want to buy this thing? Yes. But what on earth for? Mind you, I ought not to be crabbing my own paper like this, but you seem like a good chap, and I don't want to see you landed. Why are you doing it? Oh, just for fun. Ah, now you're talking. If you can afford the expensive amusements, go ahead. He put his feet on the table and lit a short pipe. His gloomy views on the subject of squibs gave way to a wave of optimism. You know, he said, there's really a lot of life in the old rag yet, if it were properly run. What has hampered us has been lack of capital. We haven't been able to advertise. I'm boosting with ideas for booming the paper, only naturally you can't do it for nothing. As for editing, well, I don't know about editing. Perhaps you got someone else in mind? No, said Roland, who would not have known an editor from an office boy. The thought of interviewing prospective editors appalled him. Very well then, resumed Mr. Petheram, reassured, kicking over a heap of papers to give him room for his feet. Take it that I continue as editor. We discuss terms later. On the present regime, I will be doing all the work in exchange for a happy home. I suppose you don't want to spoil the ship? In other words, you would sooner have a happy wolf-footed editor running about the place than a broken-down wreck who might swoon from starvation? But one moment, said Roland. Are you sure that the present owners will want to sell? Want to sell? Cried Mr. Petheram enthusiastically. Why, if they know you want to buy, you have much chance of getting away from them without the papers. Well, I can't think of anything that has such a poor chance of anything. If you aren't quick on your feet, they'll cry on your shoulder. Come along, and we'll round them up now. He struck into his coat and gave his hair an impatient brush with a notebook. Just one other thing, said Roland. I've been a regular reader script for some time. I'm particularly aware of the way in which the women's page. You mean you want to re-engage Miss March? Rather. You couldn't do better. I was going to suggest it myself. Now come along before you change your mind or wake up. Within a few days of becoming sole proprietor of Squibs, Roland began to feel much as a man might who, a novice at the art of steering cars, should find himself at the wheel of a runaway motor. Young Mr. Petheram had spoken nothing less than the truth when he said he was full of ideas for booming the paper. The infusion of capital into the business acted on him like a powerful stimulant. He exuded ideas at every pore. Roland's first notion had been to engage a staff of contributors. He was under the impression that contributors were the lifeblood of a weekly journal. Mr. Petheram corrected this view. He consented to the purchase of a lurid serial story, but that was the last concession he made. Nobody could accuse Mr. Petheram of lack of energy. He was willing, even anxious, to write the whole paper himself, with the exception of the women's page, now brightly conducted once more by Miss March. What he wanted Roland to concentrate himself upon was supplying of capital for ingenious advertising schemes. How would it be, he asked one morning, he always began his remarks with how would it be, if we paid a man to walk down Piccadilly in white-skinned tights with the word Squibs painted in red letters across his chest? Roland thought it would certainly not be. Good sound advertising stunt, urged Mr. Petheram. You don't like it? All right, you're the boss. Well, how would it be to have a squad of men dressed as Zulus with white shields bearing the legend Squibs? Do you see what I mean? Have them sprinting along the Strand shouting, wah, 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 buy it, buy it, buy it. It would make people talk. Roland emerged from these interviews with his skin crawling with modest apprehension. His was of a tiring nature, and the thought of Zulus sprinting on the Strand and shouting, wah, 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 buy it, with reference to his personal property, appalled him. He was beginning now heartily to regret having bought the paper, as he generally regretted every definite step which he took. The glow of romance which had sustained him during the preliminary negotiations had faded entirely. A girl has to be possessed of unusual charm to continue to captivate B, which to make it plainly do daily that her heart is the exclusive property of A. Roland had long since ceased to cherish any delusion that Bessie March was ever likely to feel anything but a mild liking for him. Young Mr. Petheram had obviously staked out an indisputable claim. Attitude toward him was that of an affectionate devotee towards a high priest. One morning, entering the office unexpectedly, Roland found her kissing the top of Mr. Petherum's head, and for that moment his interest in the fortunes of Squibs sank to zero. It amazed him he could ever have been idiot enough to have allowed himself to be entangled in this insane venture for the sake of an insignificant-looking bit of a girl with a snub nose and a poor complexion. What particularly galled him was the fact that he was throwing away good cash for nothing. It was true his capital was more than equal to, on the whole, the modest demands of the paper, but that did not alter the fact that he was wasting money. Mr. Petherman always talked buoyantly about turning the corner, but the corner always seemed just as far off. The old idea of flight, to which he invariably had recourse in any crisis, came upon Roland with irresistible force. He packed a bag and went to Paris. There, in the discomforts of life in a foreign country, he tried for a month to forget his white elephant. He returned by the evening train, which deposited the traveller in London in time for dinner. Strangely enough, nothing was further from Roland's mind than his bright weekly paper as he sat down to dine in a crowded grill room near the Piccadilly Circus. 4 weeks of acute torment in a city where nobody seemed to understand the simplest English sentence had driven Squibs completely from his mind for the time being. The fact that such a paper existed was brought home to him with the coffee. A note was placed upon his table by the attentive waiter. "What's this?" he asked. "The ladies, said the waiter vaguely. Roland looked around the room excitedly. The spirit of romance gripped him. There were many ladies present, for this particular restaurant was a favorite with artistes who were permitted to look in at their theaters as late as 8:30. None of them looked particularly self-conscious, yet one of the men sent this quite unsolicited tribute. He tore open the envelope. The message, written in a flowing feminine hand, was brief. Mrs. Grundy herself could have taken no exception to it. "Squibs, 1 penny weekly. Buy it," he ran. All the mellowing effects of a good dinner passed away from Roland. He was feverishly irritated. He paid his bill and left the place. A visit to a neighboring music hall occurred to him as a suitable sedative. Hardly had his nerves ceased to quiver sufficiently to allow him to begin to enjoy the performance, when in the interval between two of the turns, a man rose in one of the side boxes. "Is there a doctor in the house?" There was a hush in the audience. All eyes were directed towards the box. The man in the stalls rose, blushing, and cleared his throat. "My wife has fainted," continued the speaker. "She has just discovered she has lost her copy of Squibs." The audience received the statement with the bovine stolidity of an English audience in the presence of the unusual. Not so Roland. Even as the purposeful-looking chucker-outers wended their leopard-like steps towards the box, he was rushing on into the street. As he stood cooling his indignation in the pleasant breeze which had swung up, he was aware of a dense crowd proceeding towards him. Centered by an individual shone out against the drab background like a good deed in a evil world. Nature hath framed strange fellows in her time, and this was the strangest that Roland's bulging eyes had ever rested upon. He was this large, stout man, comfortably clad in a suit of white linen, relieved by a scarlet "Squibs" across the bosom. His top hat, at least 4 sizes larger than any top hat worn out of a pantomime, flaunted the same word in the letters of flame. His umbrella, which, though the weather was fine, he carried open upon his head, bore the device 1 penny weekly. The arrest of this person by a vigilant policeman and Roland's dive into a taxicab occurred almost simultaneously. Roland was blushing all over. His head was in a whirl. He took the evening paper handed into the window of the cab quite mechanically. It was only the strong exhortations of the vendor which eventually induced him to pay for it. They ended with a sovereign, and the cab drove off. He was just thinking of going to bed several hours later when it occurred to him he had not read his paper. He glanced at the first page. The middle column was devoted to a really capitally written account of the proceeding at Bow Street, consequent upon the arrest of 6 men who, it was alleged, had caused the crowd to collect the instruments of the piece by parading the strands in the undress of Zulu warriors, shouting in unison the words "Wah, wah, wah" by Squibs. Young Mr. Petherham greeted Roland with a joyous enthusiasm which the hound Argus, on the return of Ulysses, might have equalled, but could scarcely have surpassed. It seemed to be Mr. Petherham's considered opinion that God was in his heaven and all was right with the world. Roland's attempts to correct this bully fell on deaf ears. Have I seen the advertisements? He cried, echoing his editor's first question. I've seen nothing else. There, said Mr. Petheram proudly. It can't go on. Yes, it can. Don't you worry. I know the rest is as fast as we can send them out, but bless you, the supply is endless. Ever since the review boom started and actors were expected to do 6 different parts in 7 minutes, there are platoons of music hall pros hanging about the Strand, running for any sort of job you offer them. I have a special staff flushing the bodegas. These fellows love it. It's mean drinks them to be in the right in the public eye like that. Makes them feel 10 years younger. It's wonderful the talent knocking them out. These Dougas used to have a steady job as the Six Brothers Biff, society contortionists. The review craze killed them professionally. They cried like children when we took them on. By the way, could you put through an expenses check before you go? The fines mount up a bit. But don't worry about that either. We're coining money. I'll show you returns in a minute. I told you we should turn the corner. Turned it. Believe me, we've whizzed round it on 2 wheels. Have you had time to see the paper since you got back? No? Then you haven't seen a new scandal page. We just want to know, you know. It's a corker, and it set the circulation up like a rocket. Everybody reads scripts now. I was hoping you would come back soon. I wanted to ask you about taking new offices. We're a bit above this sort of thing now. Roland, meanwhile, was reading with horrified eyes the alleged corking scandal page. It seemed to him, without exception, the most frightful production he'd ever seen. It appalled him. This is awful, he moaned. We shall have 100 libel actions. Oh no, that's all right. It's all fake stuff, though. The public doesn't know it. If you stuck to real scandals, you wouldn't get a par a week. A more moral set of blameless wasters than the blighters that constitute modern society you never struck. But it reads all right, doesn't it? Of course, every now and then one does something genuine and it goes in. Have you heard about Percy Pook, the bookie? I've got a real ripe thing about Percy this week. The absolute limpid truth. You'll make him to sit up a bit. There, just under your thumb. Roland removed his thumb, and having read the paragraph in question, started as if he'd removed it from a snake. But this is bound to mean a legal libel action, he cried. Not a bit of it, said Mr. Petheram comfortably. You don't know Percy. I won't bore you with his life history, but take it from me he doesn't rush into a court of law from sheer love of it. You're safe enough. But it occurred to Mr. Pook, the coy in the matter of cleansing his solution before a judge and jury was not wholly without weapons of defense and offense. Arriving at the office next day, Roland found a scene of desolation, in the midst of which, like Marius among the ruins of Carthage, sat Jimmy, the vacant-faced office boy. Jimmy was reading an illustrated comic paper and appeared undisturbed by his surroundings. He's gone, he observed, looking up as Roland entered. What do you mean? Roland snapped at him. Who's gone, and where did he go? Besides that, when you speak to your superiors, you will rise and stop chewing that infernal gum. It gets on my nerves. Jimmy neither rose nor relinquished his gum. He took his time and answered. Mr. Petheram, a couple of fellers came in and went through, and there was an uproar inside there, and presently they came out running, and I went in, and there was Mr. Petheram on the floor knocked silly, and the furniture all broke, and now he's gone to the hospital. These fellows had been putting him through it proper, concluded Jimmy with moody relish. Roland sat down weakly. Jimmy, his tale told, resumed the study of his illustrated paper. Silence reigned in the offices of Squibs. It was broken by the arrival of Miss March. Her exclamation of astonishment at the sight of the wrecked room led to a repetition of Jimmy's story. She vanished on hearing the name of the hospital to which the stricken editor had been removed, and returned an hour later with flashing eyes and a set jaw. Aubrey, she said. It was news to Roland that Mr. Petheram's name was Aubrey. He is very much knocked about, but he is conscious and sitting up and taking nourishment. That's good. In a spoon only. Ah, said Roland. The doctor says he will not be out for a week. Aubrey is certain was that horrible bookmaker's man who did it, but of course he can prove nothing. But his last words to me were, slip into Percy again this week. He's given me 1 or 2 things to mention. I don't understand, but Aubrey says they will make him wild. Roland's flesh crept. The idea of making Mr. Pook any wilder than he appeared to be at present horrified him. Panic gave him strength, and he addressed Miss March, who was looking more like a modern Joan of Arc than anything else on earth, firmly. "Miss March," he said, "I realize this is a crisis, and must all do what we can for the paper, or anything in reason, but I will not slip it into Percy. You have seen the effects of slipping it into Percy. What he and his minions would do if we repeat the process, I do not care to think. You are afraid?" "Yes," said Roland simply. Miss March turned on her heel. It was plain she regarded him as a worm. Roland did not like being thought a worm, but it was infinitely better than being regarded as an interesting case by the house surgeon of a hospital. Amongst a school of thought who thought it better that people should say of you, "There he goes," than that they should say, "How peaceful he looks." Stress at work prevented further conversation. It was a revelation to Roland, the vigor and energy with which Miss March threw herself into the breach. As a matter of fact, so tremendous had been the labors of the departed Mr. Petherham that her work was more apparent than real. Thanks to Mr. Petherham, there was a sufficient supply of material in hand to enable Squibs to run a fortnight on its own momentum. Rowan, however, did not know this, and with a view to doing what little he could to help, he informed Miss March that he would write the scandal page. It must be added that the offer was due quite as much to prudence as to chivalry. Roland simply did not dare to trust her with the scandal page. In the present mood, it was not safe. To slip into Percy would, he felt, be with her the work of a moment. Literary composition had never been Roland's forte. He sat and stared at the white paper and chewed the pencil which should have been marring its whiteness with stinging paragraphs. No sort of idea came to him. His brow grew damp. What sort of people, except bookmakers, did things you could write scandal about? As far as he could ascertain, nobody. He picked up the morning paper. The name Windlebird caught his eye. A kind of pleasant melancholy came over him as he read the paragraph. Long ago, it seemed, since he had met that genial gentleman. The paragraph was not particularly interesting. It gave a brief account of some large deal which Mr. Windlebird was involved in. Roland did not understand a word of it, but it gave him an idea. Mr. Windlebird's financial standing, he knew, was above suspicion. He made that clear to him during his visit. There could be no possibility of offending Mr. Windlebird by a paragraph or two about the manners and customs of his type. Phrases which his Conley House had used during a visit came back to him, and with them inspiration. Within 5 minutes he had compiled the following. "We just want to know, you know. Who is the eminent financier at present engaged upon one of his biggest deals? Well, the public would not be well advised to look a little closer before investing their money. If it is not a fact this gentleman has bought a first-class ticket to the Argentines in case of accidents, whether he may not have to use it at any moment." After that it was easy. Ideas came with a rush. By the end of an hour he completed a scandal page of which Mr. Petherham himself might have been proud, without a suggestion of slipping it into Percy. He felt he could go to Mr. Pook and say, "Percy, in your honor as a British bookmaker, have I slipped it to you in any way whatsoever?" Mr. Pook will be compelled to reply, "You have not." Miss March read the proofs of the page and sniffed. But Miss March's blood was up, and she would have sniffed at anything not directly hostile to Mr. Pook. A week later, Roland sat in the offices of Squibs, reading a letter. It had been sent from number 18A Bream's Building, EC, but from Roland's point of view, it might have come direct from heaven. For its contents, signed by Harrison, and Harrison, solicitors, were to the effect that a client of theirs instructed them to approach him with a view to purchasing the paper. You will not find their client disguised to haggle over terms. So in the event of Roland being willing to sell, they could simply bring matters to a satisfactory conclusion. Any conclusion would left him free of Squibs without actual monetary loss would have been satisfactory to Roland. He conceived a loathing for his property which not even his steadily increasing sales could mitigate. He was around at Messrs. Harrison's office as soon as a swift taxi could take him there. The lawyers were for spinning things out with guarded remarks and cautious preambles, Morella's methods of doing business were always rapid. That chap, he said, the fellow wants to buy squibs. What'll he give? That, began one of the Harrisons ponderously, would of course largely depend. I'll take 5,000. Lock, stock, and barrel, including the present staff, and even 5,000. How's that? 5,000 is a large. Take it or leave it. My dear sir, you hold a pistol to your heads. However, I think our client might consent to the sum you mentioned. Good. Well, directly I get his check, the thing his. By the way, who is your client? Mr. Harrison coughed. His name, he said, would be familiar to you. He is the eminent financier, Mr. Geoffrey Windlebird. End of part 4.